Hello, and welcome to BeekTalk. It is a crazy day out here in the Poconos. We have a lot of bizarre weather today. So today's ticker on the bottom of the live stream is going to be, where are you from? And did you experience any of this bizarre storm? Well, thank you for tuning into BeekTalk. This is the weekly live stream show that discusses the methods and approaches one might take when keeping bees. I'm the host of the show. My name is Eric, and I'm happy to be at you today, Tuesday evening. Today, we are talking all about frames. They are a major component of beekeeping here in the United States. This is what one might look like. It's a pretty simple invention, but there are a lot of details to go over. So I'm excited to be talking to you about this topic in just a few minutes. Like I said, today there's a snow day here in the Poconos. Here is what my bees look like. They are all snowed in. The Wi-Fi has been terrible. So if I cut in and out, I apologize in advance. But that is what my bees look like. Believe it or not, it snowed probably 3 or 4 more inches on top of that today. So I don't know. I'm just going to share the live stream so my friends can see it. If you have any pictures of your bees being snowed in, I'd love to see them because, man, they look so nice and warm, snuggled in there. Oh, Jessica Snyder's here saying, "Where's the honey?" Still in the hive so far. Hopefully we have a better honey year this year than we did last year. But thanks for watching. Like I said, big snow day here in the Poconos. We got about 24 inches where I live. Other parts of the Poconos got about 30 inches or more. Some people only got 8, which is lucky for them. Like I said, in this photo, I took this morning. We got another 4 inches or so after that. So yes, we definitely have a snow day today. Let me pull this down and get rid of that. So as always, my goal for this show is to have fun and to be interactive. So I want to help you understand the world of honeybees. So as I discuss today's topic, please feel free to comment with your own experiences, ask me some questions. Once the show is over, I pick my favorite commenter to win one of these really cool BeekTalk stickers. Yep. And that's really just so we can have a good dynamic and some good conversation going on. If you're a fan of the show and want to support us, you can purchase any of these stickers as well as other products, see suggested products, order t-shirts, things like that, or even bees if you're in the area and can pick them up in Stroudsburg. My website is mightfight.buzz and blossombuzzbees.buzz. I have links in the comments. So, like I said, today's topic, we are talking all about frames. You might not think about it, but this is a big part of the beekeeping industry. This basically, this invention is the reason that we can keep bees happy and healthy and be really efficient with how we beekeep and are a lot more respectful to the bees. So this is a really rock solid invention. So I want to just talk and take it way back and just talk about what a frame is. Frame is basically a little wooden box, or you could imagine a picture frame, right? 2 sides open. You have a front side and a back side open. And this is where the bees will build their comb. This is what they do. You can put these frames together in a box called a super. So if you've heard about honey supers or deeps or mediums, that's more of a descriptor of the super. But the bees will put their comb right in the open sides of these frames. And this comb, you have to basically think about it as honeybee infrastructure. This is the roads, the hallways, the apartments, the storage units. This is everything about where the bees put their stuff. So it's all about the frame. And then you'll see that they can stack together really nicely in a box. This is a 5-frame nuke. You could also have 8-frame equipment, 10-frame equipment. Some beekeepers keep 9 frames and 10-frame equipment and things like that. It's all preference. So if you're just starting out as a beekeeper, you're going to have to learn what things that you like and things that you don't like. But today, I'm just going to try and give you a really far back general understanding about frames and a little bit about building them and things like that. So I talked about what a frame is. Some people, when they're starting out, they call these racks or slides or files because that's kind of what they look like in the super. But frame is the right word. As a beekeeping educator, I want to get you out on the right words, but I do hear new people say things like racks or slides or files or things like that. So if you're one of those people, the right word is frame. A brief history. This is one thing that I'm really proud of. I do this live stream out of Pennsylvania, the Pocono Mountains. These frames were actually invented here. There's throughout history, hundreds, thousands of years, people have been beekeeping. There's many different styles and designs of beehives and different ways of keeping bees. But as far as the movable frame that we are all familiar with, this is a product of Pennsylvania. It all started in Philadelphia in the 1850s. A gentleman who was a reverend, he went by Lorenzo Lorraine Langstroth, or LL Langstroth. You might remember the Langstroth name. That is because this is the name of the hive that we use. He invented this system known as the movable frame hive, or the Langstroth hive, because of his name. And this is a real beauty. Before this, people would keep bees in logs and, those skips, the wicker baskets that you see in like really old school, like English beekeeping, old timey movies might have the witch doctor with a skip, and that's where she'd get her honey, because honey is a big part of old-fashioned medicine and even medicine today. But I digress. We have our frame, and this is the most modern system that we use. Even though it was built and designed in the 1850s, hasn't really changed too much. You might have heard of the flow hive, which is just an adaptation of this frame. It even follows a lot of the same measurements. You might have heard of Apime hives, which also follow this. The polystyrene or the styrofoam hives also keep these same dimensions. Once we learned about the distance, if I put these two frames together, the distance in here is 3/8 of an inch, or bee space, it was called. Langstroth discovered that. Once we found this, we knew to make these measurements and to stick by it. And it works for the bees and it works for us. So we're going to rock with it. Yeah, and so that is the very brief history of the frames. I already talked about how valuable and important the comb is. The beauty of these movable frames is that the beekeeper can observe these combs, active and full of bees, without really disrupting the hive. Prior to the movable frame, the beekeeper had to cut all of this valuable comb out and crush it to strain out the honey, or they basically had to destroy it to check the health of the hive, which is kind of really counterproductive, especially considering how labor intensive it is for bees to make this comb. So we have the movable frame, and we love it because it's better for the bees, it's better for us, and that's why I'm talking about it today in this Beak Talk. So it is, as a beekeeper, it's easy to build up an inventory of a few hundred or even thousands of frames. With that said, buying, fixing, building frames becomes an essential function of beekeeping. Many beekeepers buy their frames already assembled for their first few hives. When you're starting out, you don't know what the deal is. You don't know what you're good at yet. So a lot of people just dump the money and buy all their equipment already assembled. If you're a handy person and you have some tools and some space to do it, it's always more beneficial to build your own equipment, because you can probably do a better job than the commercial builders who sell them. And you could be a lot more detailed, and you can do some quality control as you're moving along. So I always say it's worth it to build your own equipment. But everyone is different. Everyone's finances are a little bit different. So why build your own frames? First off, it's a lot cheaper to build your own stuff. You have more flexibility building your own equipment than you do purchasing the already assembled stuff. Yeah, it's good. Might not last as long. They don't do as good a job of building it as you can. Yeah, you can definitely make a lot more long-lasting equipment. I have some frames in my operation that have been around for over a decade, and they're still being used, no problem. We'll talk a little bit about rotation in a little while. So when I talk about flexibility, what I'm really talking about is the foundation. The foundation is the place for the bees to start building their wax. Some beekeepers don't use foundation and they go foundationless. You might have heard that before in some research. Foundationless is basically just giving them a little strip to start from. You're being the beekeeper, you're kind of influencing the bees and giving them a little nudge as to where to start, but then you let them do it all themselves. That's really healthy for the bees, but it is kind of inconvenient for the beekeeper. So everyone takes a different approach to beekeeping. So foundationless might be in your approach. It's not in my approach. I have some students who do foundationless and they love it. So I'm not going to knock it because they are successful. They keep bees, they get through winter. But everyone's different. Right here is basically a foundationless frame. You have the frame and no foundation. This is a foundation frame. It's plastic. When you buy them, they don't have this hole in it. I add the hole. I'll talk more about that in a little bit, but it is hard plastic. I believe it's HDPE, which is very similar. I think it's the same plastic they use to make plastic cutting boards. Food safe, dishwasher safe, animal safe. There's no, I shouldn't say no, because there's never no VOCs, volatile organic compounds. That's like the off-gassing from manufacturing. So if you buy like a fake leather couch and it smells, those are VOCs. You want to watch out for VOCs inside your hive. But to be honest, these plastic foundations aren't too bad. Of course, if you find some that are really, really cheap compared to the market price, I would watch out. Cheap is usually cheap for a reason. But building your own frames, gives you the flexibility on this foundation. So I use the plastic foundation. I've been using it for probably 6-8 years. It's probably the plastic foundation has been on the market and a lot more popular in the last 8 to 10 years, that kind of range. But it's newer as far as beekeeping goes. Before plastic, beekeepers would use wax foundation, which is basically they would melt beeswax. They would extract it from their hive, melt it, make a sheet of beeswax, and then run that sheet through 2 rollers and basically emboss a honeycomb. So it would look just like my green screen here, actually. That would be a wax foundation. A lot of commercial beekeepers still use beeswax foundations. A lot of holistic or more natural beekeepers use that. There is some controversy about it because commercially produced wax foundation is usually made from beeswax extracted from thousands of colonies. So there is a potential for getting spore-borne viruses or illnesses to your bees, like foul brood. I'm not sure how much of a concern that really is, but it is something to think about. And also, it is beeswax usually coming from the commercial sector of beekeeping. So that beeswax might have some residual pesticides or residual miticides present in the wax. So those are things to consider. And there's also always new products. Like I said, this frame was invented in the 1850s. A decade or two ago, we got these plastic foundations, and I love it. But in theory, you know, in the grand scheme, it's pretty much a new invention. Other new inventions that are coming around is something called Better Comb. A disclosure, I don't have any personal experience with Better Comb. I have not talked face-to-face with beekeepers who have used Better Comb, but it's something that came out the past couple of years, 2-3 years, and it is basically a wax foundation, not pure beeswax. I think it's a synthetic, like man-made blend of beeswax, of other waxes and beeswax that really mimics beeswax. And you have the foundation, but they also draw out a little bit of comb. So once you put this Better Comb, not this, once you put Better Comb in your hive, in theory, the bees can draw it out like overnight, very fast. Like I said, I don't have any experience. If you have any experience with Better Comb, I'd love to hear about it in the comments, because this is actually where I get a lot of feedback about products. I'll actually go to the comments right now. Kim says, hi, Kim. And then we have Jessica, who asks, do I eat the comb? You can eat some comb. They have chunk honey or comb honey. That's definitely a special thing for special people. I don't like it, but I know some people love it, and it's very nostalgic for them. Back in the day, beekeepers only sold honey, or they tried to only sell honey still in the comb, because that was their way of proving it is beeswax. It is beeswax and bees' honey. You know, back in the day, anything coming from a salesman in the back of a wagon, you know, you couldn't really trust. But honey is the only thing humans can't reproduce. We can't make it in the beeswax and the comb and make it look the same way. So if you're buying comb honey, you can be assured that it is honey inside the comb. And she is a bee virgin. Well, it's great that you're watching the show. This show, I do it because I want people to learn, and I want it to be a happy, inviting environment for people to learn about bees. So we're going to be talking more about frames. I have a long discussion today because there's a lot to talk about. So we talked about foundation. You can also buy a solid frame of plastic foundation, plastic wood for the frame part. I don't really like these. Some beekeepers swear by them. It's a little tricky to get the bees to want to build comb on it. They only like to do it when there's a really heavy honey flow. If you have any tricks to making bees build comb on all plastic frames, let me know. If you're buying all plastic frames, keep in mind you want them pre-waxed. If they're not pre-waxed, you're going to have to melt some beeswax and paint it on, which is kind of a hassle. Again, if the frame is very inexpensive compared to the rest of the market, I would watch out, because it might not be the best plastic and it might not be pre-waxed. Other things as far as buying frames, like I said, a lot of people use wood. This is the most common. You can buy them pre-built. They come wooden frame, solid plastic foundation. This is, I mean, you could go to Man Lake, Better Be, anyone, Dayton, and buy frames like this. They're happy to sell them to you because they make a couple extra bucks. If you don't have space, you don't have a workshop or tools or the time or the space, it would be worth it to buy pre-built frames, but I like making my own. There's a variety of frames that you can buy. You get pieces sent kind of like this. I gotta break this open. You get two ends. These are deep frames too. You can get deep, medium, or shallow. This is a deep frame. This is a medium frame. You see it's something like 3 inches shorter. And then the shallow, I think, is an inch or two shorter than the medium yet. Shallow beekeeping is kind of a way of the past. Not many beekeepers use that anymore. And if they do, chances are they're really commercial. Most common for regular backyard beekeepers, deeps and mediums. If you're starting out, I would implore you to start with mediums and stick that way. It's lighter, but I'll talk about that. I'm sure I've covered that in other Beek Talks, and that's something I swear by. But you get your end bars, you get your top bar, and you get your bottom bar. These are the 4 pieces that go to make one frame, less the foundation. And basically, they just pop together like this. Ooh. So this is the rough and dirty about it. All the pieces fit together like a puzzle. You can buy, this is a solid bottom bar right here, but you can buy split, which kind of looks like this, but all the way through. Your end bars. There's a lot of different kinds of end bars, and it really depends on the kind of foundation you want to use. So my advice for beekeepers who are starting out is to choose the style of beekeeping you want, whether you want to do all mediums, all deeps, back and forth. Deeps back and forth is the most common. I'm trying to encourage a lot of people to do just mediums because it's lighter for your back. But solid end bars are great for people who are using plastic foundation. If you are doing foundationless or wired, you're going to need end bars that have little holes. And you definitely need to glue and nail frames too. I'll talk more about that. But you'll have 2 or 3 little holes drilled through the end bar. And what this does is allows you the space to put wires through or pins to hold wax foundation. So what I would encourage you to do, make your decision for what size frame and what foundation you want. And then when you're buying your frames from a bee distributor, I would ask them, I would say, hey, I'm going to use, wire and old-fashioned wax foundation. What's the frame I should use? And they'll direct you because it's really different depending on all different sellers. Some are more expensive, and a frame is a frame to me. All I need is a solid bottom groove and a top groove. But when you're buying them, you'll realize there's a whole lot of variety. What else do we have here? Yeah, solid bottoms, split bottoms, wired, hold, end bars, all kinds of variety. So, I got a shout out from Tim. Hey, Tim. Okay, so if you are building your own frames like I build, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. But first, I want to just switch my camera so I can show you my workbench here. Here's my workbench. I see my green screen is a mess, so I'm going to roll this up here. Okay. Hi. Here's some general advice for everybody. I would keep a hammer, a small hammer, and a pack of 1-inch nails in your beekeeping bag. Nothing is worse than being out in the field and breaking a frame and not being able to fix it. So little hammer and a pack of nails. These are 1-inch nails. I bought this hammer at Walmart, and it's actually pretty cool because it has, sorry for the squeaks, has screwdrivers in it. So I like to try and keep my beekeeping bag as simple as possible. So one tool, having a hammer, a pry bar for the claw, and having screwdrivers included, that's stellar. The other thing to keep in mind is that your hive tool, this little hole here, this is your basic, bare bones basic hive tool. It has a nail puller right up here. A lot of people ask what it is. Some people hang their hive tool with it. Other people use it to pull out nails. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you're building your own, you can use the hammer and nails. That works fine. But if you're building a lot of frames, I would implore you to invest in an air nailer or a pneumatic nailer or stapler. This one, really cheap on Amazon. It's the Wen brand. I've been using it for about a year. It's like 20 bucks or so. It hasn't broke on me yet. The beautiful thing about this is it uses staples, which I like to use when building frames. These are 3/4-inch staples. And it can also fit brads, which are basically regular nails, if you can see. These are 1.25 inches. So those are the two measurements that I use when I'm building my frames. I'm going to just pull this out and show you. One thing, if you're building frames a lot, it would probably be worth your time to build a, this thread here is green. Yeah, Tim, exactly. Shout out to the green screen. This thread here is green and it's picking up my green screen. Anyway, I would use one of these frame jigs. You can build one very easily. This one's called the Pezelnik frame jig. I actually received this secondhand from another beekeeping friend who's the president of the Milford Bee Club, also in Pennsylvania. Anyway, it's an amazing jig for building frames. You can design them any way that you want, but basically this one builds 10 frames in about 10 minutes using an air nailer. What you'll do is put your frames, your end bars, in this little slat like this. And then you can come to the other side and it wedges the end bars in the jig here. And then I am missing one more end bar, but I'll have to, oh, here we are. And then, of course, I only have 5 frames in here right now, and you can fit 10, but I just want to show you, this is a great spot where you'd use some wood glue. I'll talk about wood glue in a minute. And you'd run it inside your seams. Then you can take your top bars and just pop them right in. And you can do this all the way down the line. Put your top bars in. You can take your air nailer or your hammer and hit them with the nails. And then the beauty of it is that you can pick up this whole unit when you are gluing it and nailing it and flip it upside down and then put your bottom bars on when it's flipped. So I'm going to flip it right now to show you, but chances are everything's going to fall out. I feel like I'm doing a cooking show, but for bees. Yes, so I didn't do all my top bars, but I have my jig here. Again, I would do some wood glue in these joints, pop in my bottom bars, send in some brads or staples, and I am on my way. I'm going to get rid of this messy display now. Woo! So I have something to clean up later. Okay, here we are. This is the discussion. Let me get me back to my regular camera here. Whew. All right. Wood glue. Wood glue is an absolute must. Wood glue is essential. You have to use wood glue. You must use wood glue. If you're going to use an air nailer, use glue. If you're going to use a hammer and nails, use glue. I've done a lot of woodworking. I've talked to a lot of woodworkers. I've built thousands of frames. If you run out of wood glue, stop building frames, go to the hardware store, buy more wood glue, and then continue. It's not worth it to make a frame without glue, not even once. Don't do it. Some commercial builders who build the pre-built frames that you can buy skimp out on glue, and their frames could be decommissioned in 2 seasons. In 2014 and 2015, I decided, hey, I don't need wood glue. I'm going to build, 50, 60 frames, put them into circulation, and not glue them. I'm only going to nail them. I'm pretty sure I've decommissioned all of those frames. They just break. You don't think about it, but when the frame is drawn out with comb and filled up with honey, right now, it's maybe 7 ounces. When it's full, it can weigh about 10 pounds, 9, 10 pounds, especially if it has bees on it. Two 1-inch nails are not going to hold that together. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. If you listen to anything I tell you, it's wood glue. Usually when I write my script for this show, it's 4 or 5 pages. I think I have a page on wood glue. I would stay away from expanding glues. Like I know the Gorilla brand has some products that expand, and that's good for some construction purposes. But as far as frames go, nothing beats good old-fashioned wood glue. My favorite is Type-On 2. I use this by the gallon. I go through about 1.5 gallons a year building my supers, building frames, building educational pieces, things like that. You can use Type-On, the original Type-On 1, Type-On 2. Some beekeepers use Type-On 3 because it has water-resistant properties. Personally, I don't like Type-On 3, but anything is better than nothing. And when I tell you that anything is better than nothing, if you run out of wood glue and are in an absolute pinch, if you're in a snowstorm like we have, 30 inches of snow, and you decide I'm going to build some frames, and the only thing that you have is old-fashioned Elmer's white school glue, that is better than nothing. Believe it or not, the only difference between white Elmer's wood glue that kids would eat in school and this is that this has some resins in it from trees, and that helps with the bonding of wood. If you think about what else has resin in it, is propolis that the bees use to glue the hive together. So even the bees make their own kind of wood glue. Don't build frames or supers without wood glue. That's my firm advice. Any woodworking project, I would use wood glue. I even made this frame here. This side is just nails. This side is glue and nails, and I only made one, and I didn't want to risk it, but the nail side broke. Nail side broke. Glue and nail side is still together. When I tell, I mean, of course, I destroyed the frame when I broke this, but you see what I mean. It makes the difference. And when these frames get heavy with 10 pounds of honey, if everything's rocking and you're doing great, nothing is more of a bummer than having to fix a frame that's oozing with honey and the bees are not happy about it. So yes, wood glue is essential. You must use it, even if you have to use old-fashioned Elmer's glue. Tim Stone says, love the demo. Love when people show how to do things on live stream. Thanks. Yeah, I love doing this too. So let's talk about some pro tips. I'm almost at the end of my Beak Talk here about frames. If you have any other experience with frames or anything about beekeeping that you want to add, I would love to see it. If you have pictures of your bees being snowed in with this snowstorm, I'd love to see that too. But I want to talk about some pro tips, some things that I learned over the past, 14, 15 years of beekeeping and with talking to people. Dating frames. This is something a lot of books talked about doing in, around CCD, mid-aughties, so mid-2000s. A lot of people were saying, date your frames because we don't know what this bee disease is. And a lot of people would date their frames on the top of the frame. So when you open up your hive, you'll see a bunch of dates. Personally, I think that's a little tacky. No beef with you doing it, but I don't like to do it in my own hives. We also say date them, not, today is February 2nd, 2021. The most important thing is to put the year. So what I do is on the bottom, I just put the year. That's all that matters. If I'm building it in the winter of 2020 and it's going to go out in 2021, I'll write 2021. So either the year that I build it or the year that it's going to go into circulation. What's great about this, and I forgot I have another thing to share. Let's go here. Can you guys? Yeah, I think you guys can see that. So one thing, this is just the bottom of one of my supers. You can pull it off the hive. Right now it's sitting in storage, but if you tip it up and look at the bottom, you can see that it's 2020, 2020, 19, 19, 18. Obviously, this frame is older, along with this one. You can tell after they're in circulation for 2-3 years, they turn this darker brown, but then they stay that darker brown. So some of these frames could be 15 years old. It's not necessarily the best to, let me remove this. It's not necessarily the best to keep your frames in for that long, but if you're not dating them, then you don't know. Some beekeepers will tell you have to circulate frames or cull frames every 3 years. I think that's a lie made up by Big Frame trying to get you to build and buy more frames. Basically, when the frame is gunky and really gross and messed up or broken, then you can get rid of it. Otherwise, if it has comb, maybe a little bit of mildew, don't worry about it. The bees will clean that up, no problem. Another thing that you can do, I like to do it, especially because I sell nukes to people, is I actually stamp my frames. If you could check it out, that says Blossom Buzz Beekeeping. That is my business. What I did is I went to a online rubber stamp place, and they made me this little 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch logo, and I just stamp it and put it on my frame. Again, I put it on the side where I don't see it very often. Beekeeping is therapeutic for me, and I like, I'm a little OCD, so I like the frames to look pristine. But if someone steals my boxes or needs to know where they bought that nuke last year, I keep the stamp on it. And then I also might change the stamp every couple of years, so I know, that, in case I forgot to date a frame, I can say, that's from, those 5 years I had that stamp. Those 5 years I had this stamp. The longer you're a beekeeper, the more you have to think forward into what's going to help me down the road. What are some other tips? Like I said, keep a pack of nails and a hammer in your beekeeping tool bag. It's a great tool to have in your beak bag. You don't think about it, but a hammer is helpful if you have in the springtime when the bees have really propolised the boxes together. You can put in your hive tool, which is basically a chisel, and smack the end of it to give you a little bit more leverage to get in there. Some hive tools, like this one, even come with a hammer attachment that goes on here. I took mine off when I bought the tool, and now I lost it. That's how things go in my house. But I have a link to this hive tool that has a built-in hammer on my my Blossom and Buzz beekeeping page, and it even has this little piece here. Perfectly fits inside the notch of your frame. So if you have to clean this gunk out, this hive tool is actually perfect for it. And I think these are only like 10 or 20 bucks. So I keep it around, even though it's not my favorite hive tool. I use one of these all the time, or one with a little bend in it. But this one has the scrapers, has the nail puller, has the hammer, has a frame puller right here. It even has a queen excluder cleaner. So I would keep one of these around, just because when you're in the bee yard and you don't have the right tool, it's a bummer. Let me check to see if there's any other tips that I have. Frame building jig that I showed you, that I have all full of bits and pieces now. I would build one. If you're going to build by hand 20, 30 frames a year, that's only 3 supers. So if you buy one new hive a year, it would be worth it to build that jig. It would probably only take you an hour, but it goes from building frames 1 at a time to building frames 10 at a time. So it's a lot easier. Other pro tips. Wood glue. Use it. I swear. I'm not trying to mess with you. And my last pro tip I talked about a little bit earlier in the live stream, but drilling the hole. This is something that I started doing with my foundations a few years ago, and it comes from a couple different schools of thought. I'll probably even do a whole Beak Talk just about this once I get to see what my dead outs look like this year and see what it looks like. But foundation comes from the store, and it's solid like this. And that's nice and all, but it doesn't allow the bees to build anything weird. The bees really like building weird stuff. They like building weird formations. They like making worker cells, drone cells, queen cells, little squiggles. They like making weird stuff. And this really manufactured, sterile base is good most of the time. But you do want to give the bees a little flexibility to make some drone comb, because it makes the hives a little healthier. You think about the bees kicking out the drones before the winter. But in the springtime, they're trying to lay as many as possible. That's how the bees reproduce in a way. That's how they pass on their genetic information. So cutting out this little hole, it's basically like states' rights for the bees. If they want, they could leave it open, and now they have a passageway. So if I'm a bee here, instead of having to go all the way down and around to get back to where I was on the other side of the frame, now you could just go through. Pretty easy. Some of the bees like that. Some of them just fill this right back up. Some of them fill it with worker comb, which is totally fine. Obviously, it's what they want to do. Some beehives fill it up with drone comb. So if I go here, you can see in the size of the cells, you can see they left a part of the hole as a passageway. They filled up the rest of the hole with drone comb, and then the rest of the frame is that manufactured worker cell. And that's fine. It allowed them the opportunity to do what they want. Here's another example. They didn't get a chance to build very much on this frame, but what they did decide to do is festoon and build some wax right in the middle. So for some reason, they said, first priority is to fill up this hole. This is a 2020 frame, so we'll see what they do to it this year. And then other one, the size of the hole doesn't really matter. To be honest, anything 3/4 of an inch to 2 inches would be fine. I think this is probably a 2-inch hole. But you see, they kind of ignored it. They put some wax around the outside, and they just ignored the hole. I'll definitely talk a lot more about the drilling of holes in frames in another Beak Talk once I can get some more information from my hives. I probably have 200 frames like that in circulation now. So now that they've been in circulation, been drawn out by the bees, inhabited by bees, I want to do a little experimenting, see what they can, see what they prefer. Oh, Jessica's saying, that was awesome. Yes. Wood glue, anything. Wood glue anything. Any wood surfaces, wood glue it. I would drink it, but it's probably not good. Thank you for watching, Jess. And thank you for watching, Tim. I'll take any questions that you have. If you are a beekeeper and you have some experience about frames, you have a story about building frames with no wood glue you want to tell me about, I'm more than happy to answer you in the comments, even after the live stream. Yeah, I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, you can please share it with your friends. I love to teach people about bees, and bees are a lot more interesting than people like to give them credit for. If you really like the show and you want to support us, you can purchase any of these stickers on the Mite Fight or Blossom and Buzz websites. I have a link in the comments. Like I said, please share this. Last week, we had a agricultural economist on the show, show number 10. Dr. Brittany Goodrich was talking about the almond pollination. So if you like this show and want to learn more, you can go and see our back catalog. They're archived on Mite Fight's Facebook and YouTube channel. I had my nephew on talking about how we clean frames and store them for winter, and talking about kid-friendly beekeeping activities. And then yeah, so that's the deal. I got some comments. We got Jim, who is a Mite Fight subscriber. Hey, Jim. And he is trying to survive this first winter. Yeah, winter is the first very hard, very difficult obstacle for beekeepers. It's easy to keep bees during the summer. Unfortunately, here in Pennsylvania and the north, getting through winter is an obstacle. I tell people, if you can get your bees through winter by your 3rd year, you are well on track to being a successful beekeeper. People don't like to hear that. They want success the first time around. It's hard. There's a lot of variables. I just talked for 50 minutes about one component of a beehive. Not even anything about bees, just about components. So there's a lot to learn. There's a lot of variables to consider with any approach of beekeeping, any style. So the fact that you're watching the show and that, I know you're treating for mites, those are really big obstacles that people take a long time to learn how to do. The fact that you're watching the show means that you're getting me nagging in your ear. So when you're in the apiary and you say, oh, I see this frame's going to break, to pop a nail into it, and next time to use some wood glue. But yeah, it's all getting exposure to these different ideas. I try to tell you my experience, but also show what other people do and other things that I've heard, because beekeeping is kind of like being a parent, where everyone has different ways of doing it, and you can't tell someone they're doing it wrong. But you obviously see who's successful and who's doing better than other people. So trying to survive your first winter, I say good luck. I think you'll do great. But if not, your bees, you've learned a lot from your bees in a year, and your next round of bees will be a lot better off because they already have the comb. We talked about earlier this show how important this comb is. So your first year of bees, build the comb so your second year of bees can thrive with them. Yes. And then I also have Tim asking where I get these stickers printed. I love Sticker Mule. This is where I get my stickers printed. I will, after the show, I will drop in the comments a link to Sticker Mule. If you use the link, you get $10, I get $10. So that's how we can do it. Like I said, if you enjoyed the show, please share it. I do once a week, I do a discussion like this. Like I said, last week we had an agricultural economist from UC Davis on talking about the almond pollination. This is the 11th show. I feel like I've talked about a little bit of every aspect of beekeeping. And, here on out, I'll go in more depth like I did today. Today's show is about twice the length that I usually like to do, but that's how it goes. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching, and I will see you next week.